stacked-eyed tiger estimated to be above S rank and danger level. Hisaki tried to stand up, shaking, while Hinoki explained that the stacked-eyed tiger is a living disaster that kills numerous humans within a few kilometers with its poisonous aura. This demon was quite common during their era, but now it was overwhelmingly powerful for the youngsters of this era. Panicking, Hisaki ran away, shouting that he needed to escape or else he would be killed. Kanagi warned Hisaki that it was better not to move, as the tiger targets moving objects. The stacked-eyed tiger saw Hisaki running and immediately lashed out with one of its tentacles. Hisaki, covering himself with his sword and shouting at the demon to stay away, was helpless as the tentacle pierced his chest. Despite having slain a dragon with his sword before, Hisaki couldn't stop the demon from spreading its tentacles inside his body. The stacked-eyed tiger began to absorb Hisaki, making him scream in pain. Kanagi simply told him that he had warned him. Hinoki then wrapped his hand around Kanagi and asked if he would give his body to him completely. Hinoki then asked if Kanagi wanted to see the founder Hinoki's one-handed sword style, thinking he would take the vessel while the others were distracted. Kanagi responded that he didn't mind lending his body, to which Hinoki excitedly agreed. However, another founder grabbed Hinoki and accused him of trying to run away with such a strong vessel, claiming it for themselves. Realizing he had been noticed, Hinoki tried to calm everyone down. They all stopped when Kanagi told them he had one condition: he would only lend his body to everyone. This confused them. Kanagi tells the founders that he will definitely surpass all of them and, in time, reach the same heights they did. He also wants to see how strong he will become. He then challenges them to show him what they've got. Hinoki wonders what Kanagi's deal is, thinking he's insane while drawing his sword. Hinoki then takes control of Kanagi's body and shouts to the other founders that they should join in. He slashes the demon with the stick, aided by Hinoki, severing one of the demon's arms. The demon launches its other arm to attack, but Kanagi, while looking at the chopped stick in his hand, manages to dodge as another founder possesses his body. He then uses his hand to cut the demon's arm, shocking the demon. Kanagi grabs a huge stick from the ground, and the spearman founder possesses his body, using the stick as a spear to attack the demon. Another founder then possesses him, allowing him to easily dodge the demon's attacks. The old founder takes over, enabling Kanagi to grab the demon's tentacle and slam it into the ground with immense force. The demon is flung into the air, and Kanagi grabs the bag. The archer founder possesses him, and he aims and successfully hits the demon in the head. It screams in pain as its blood spreads around. Kanagi wipes his face and continuously attacks the demon in different ways as the founders possess his body one by one. Hinoki then takes control again and grabs Hisaki's broken sword from the ground. The demon attempts a surprise underground attack, but Kanagi's eyes turn yellow as the great wizard possesses him and electrocutes the demon. He then jumps, and when he is above it, Hinoki uses his one-handed sword style, Gekurautachi wave cutting blade, to slash the demon in half, killing it. Kanagi smiles victoriously. Meanwhile, a raven perched on a tree watches everything that just happened. In the city, a man floating in mid-air answers his phone, incredulous that the demon was already defeated when he was just about to head over there. He asks if there are any strong hunters nearby. The person on the other line responds that, based on footage from the Raven, it was a student of the academy. The man, surprised, acknowledges this. The world's strongest awakened, Ikehara Midori, then tells the person on the other line that he wants to meet that student. The next morning, Ikehara is sitting on a pile of dead monsters, calling the director and informing him about the S-rank demon. The director asks if Ikehara defeated it, but he replies that it was not him. Based on footage from his Raven, it was Kanagi Minato who defeated it. Ikehara mentions that Kanagi failed the hunter's examination 3 years in a row, which makes it hard for him to believe. He then asks the director if he could do him a favor. Meanwhile, at the academy, students are asking each other if they were okay yesterday because the aura was so awful that they couldn't move. One student jokes with his friend, asking what he would do if he told him that it was actually him who killed the monster. The friend dismisses it as impossible, noting that it has been 10 years since the last emergence of an S-rank hunter. However, the friend reminds him of a rumor that the one who defeated the monster was actually a student from the academy. Kanagi walking with a stick to support his shaking, while the other student dismisses the idea, thinking no hunter could defeat that demon, and if there were such a person, he wouldn't be in their academy. Kanagi is amazed that the only topic of conversation today is yesterday's incident. Suddenly, a man bumps him aside, telling him he's in the way. Kanagi falls to the floor, and the man thinks there is no way such a loser could be the S-rank slayer while looking at him. Kanagi knows he defeated the demon yesterday, but it was because he lent his body to the founders. Now, his body is painfully torn apart as the recoil. Someone then laughingly asks him if he is completely okay with it, and when he looks up, he sees it as Hinoki. Hinoki tells him to get a grip and asks if he wanted to surpass them. Kanagi remembers saying it last night and confidently responds that he did. He pushes himself to stand up while Hinoki laughingly tells him to show his guts. Hinoki looks at the students and notices that the level of the awakeners in this era is too low, more or less the same as normal humans, which he considers trash. Hinoki also thinks that if the tower were to emerge right at that moment, the world would surely end. But then Hinoki is surprised to sense someone with a strong aura. Kannagi asks Hinoki what is wrong, but Hinoki replies it's nothing, though he thinks that just now he felt a tremendous aura. Suddenly, a professor shouted for Kannagi to hurry up and come over. Apologizing, Kannagi asked if it was his letter of resignation, knowing that he had only 3 chances to take the test and that the hunter's qualification test can only be taken from the training academy, meaning he would need to start over from the general admission slot. However, the professor told him to go to the field immediately because it was his re-examination, which surprised him. A moment later, the students watched from the window, wondering if there had ever been a hunter re-examination test before, but no one knew. Meanwhile, in the field, Kannagi's mission was a 100-meter sprint, with an average time of 3.6 seconds and a best record of 2.7 seconds. He knew he was not in perfect condition but needed to give his best. The man who had pushed him earlier told the students that Kannagi was famous for being a failure even in the teacher's office, and that giving him a chance after 3 years of failure was just sympathy. However, when Kannagi began to run, everyone was shocked when he completed it in 1.2 seconds. In the next test, his mission was to complete a 3,000-meter sprint with an average time of 4 minutes and 20 seconds and a best record of 3 minutes and 17 seconds. To everyone's astonishment, he finished it in 1 minute and 17 seconds. The next test was push-ups in 2 minutes, with an average of 215 push-ups and a best record of 418 push-ups, but he managed 840 push-ups. The next test was the bench press, with an average weight of 4,000 kilograms and a best record of 620 kilograms, yet he lifted 1,280 kilograms. The students were shocked and asked what he was because he beat all the best records by more than double, and the ladies thought he was cool. Kannagi wondered if the founders were still lending him with their powers, but Hinoki knew they wouldn't help with something like this and that they hadn't done anything. Meanwhile, in the headmaster's office, the headmaster gave Ikahara all the current records of Kannagi Minato. Ikahara thanked the headmaster and was amazed at Kannagi's records. The headmaster told Ikahara that when he heard about the request for re-examination, he thought something was wrong. Even though Kannagi's physical abilities are amazing, the real issue is his magic capacity because, in all the tests over the past 3 years, Kannagi's capacity was immeasurable, and he essentially had no mana, so the headmaster thought it would be a waste of their attention. Ikahara's secretary commented that this was what they expected of Kannagi, but Ikahara just laughed and said they would see about it. Meanwhile, in the field, he was taking the magic measurement test. The professor asked if he understood how the measurement worked and explained that he had to use his magic to spin the giant fans within 30 seconds. The number of rotations would determine his score. He replied that he did. The average score for the test was 1,513 spins, and the best record was 4,022 spins. He stretched out his hand, remembering that in the past 3 years, he couldn't even move the fans, no matter how hard he tried. He couldn't control mana because he couldn't feel it at all, but now he could feel it circulating around him. From his right foot, it flowed upward into his body, circling inside him and returning to his right foot. He also knew that he could accelerate the cycle with his breathing and release it through the palm of his right hand. The professor then shouted for him to start. He released his mana into the fan, and the count machine began to register the spins. Suddenly, the fan spun rapidly, speeding up the count and shocking the professors. The fan turned so fast that the counting machine couldn't keep up, and the air from the fan made it difficult for the professors to see the score. Then, the machine holding the fan exploded, and the fan flew away. It soared towards a building, causing the students to panic, and crashed directly into the headmaster's office, causing a loud explosion. The headmaster narrowly avoided being hit and collapsed from the shock. Ikahara's secretary was in disbelief, but Ikahara laughed, saying it seemed Kannagi and he were alike. Ikahara then looked at him, declaring that Kannagi was the second person in history after him to achieve an immeasurable score. The professor, who had witnessed everything, shouted that he had passed the hunter examination. The students cheered for him, exclaiming that he had achieved the best record in every test. He looked at his hand in disbelief, tears streaming down his face, and thanked them profusely, amazed that the power had been inside him all this time. Hinoki smiled, expecting this outcome, and Kannagi knew that by lending his body to the founders, the potential within him had been awakened. Laughingly, Hinoki told him that he was not an ordinary person with the crest of nothingness and that he had been waiting for him for more than a century. Hinoki then asked if they would agree and Kannagi might fulfill their wish, believing that he might be the one they had been waiting for. Just then, a strong aura landed in front of him, shocking him. He stutteringly asked what it was and if it was an explosion, but Hinoki recognized it as the tremendous aura he had felt that morning. Ikehara greeted him, and he was stunned to see the legendary figure standing before him. Ikehara congratulated him on his hunter examination results. He stutteringly thanked Ikehara, unable to believe that the legend knew his name and wondering what was happening. Ikehara then said they should start an additional test for him, suggesting they call it try to hit the strongest hunter at least once, which shocked him to his core. Ikehara Midori, a 23-year-old man, became a full-fledged hunter at the age of 9. No one could deny that he was the world's strongest hunter. Ikehara turned thousands of demons into ashes in an instant, and weak demons and even hunters could be easily killed with a mere fraction of his power. He single-handedly conquered the Pandemonium outbreak 10 years ago and the Kyushu outbreak 5 years ago, earning him the title of a living singularity. This is why it was such a shock when Ikehara told him to try to hit him at least once. Hinoki called out excitedly, urging him to lend his body to him immediately. Ikehara then explained the simple rule: if he could land a hit within the next minute, he would win. Even if he lost, there would be no punishment. Additionally, Ikehara would only attack once every 10 seconds. Ikehara assured him there was no need to worry, as he would go easy on him and he could use any skill he wanted, while Ikehara wouldn't use any skills at all. Ikehara then summoned a swarm of different weapons, telling him he could choose any weapon he liked. This surprised him, and he wondered what was happening. He was confused about the additional test and whether he could really fight the famous Ikehara Midori head-on in that 1-minute time frame. He asked Ikehara if he could really use any weapon, and Ikehara grabbed a katana, replying that he could use them absolutely because his body was harder than a katana. Ikehara then easily cut the katana in half, stating that his body was sharper than any sword. He snapped out of his thoughts when Hinoki shouted at him to hurry up and switch with him. Hinoki then angrily asked how dare Ikehara say such words, shouting that he couldn't forgive Ikehara now. This made him realize that Hinoki was getting excited and that Ikehara's power was at the same level as the founders, meaning he didn't stand a chance. Behind him, Hinoki was fuming with anger, staring at Ikehara. He sighed and faced Ikehara with a brave face. The students watched excitedly, shouting that something interesting was starting, a real battle with Ikehara. Hinoki asked what he was doing and was about to tell him to lend him his body quickly. But then Ikehara started the timer, smiling as he told him they should begin. He grabbed a sword and rushed at Ikehara to attack. Hinoki asked if he was planning on fighting alone, insisting it wasn't fair, but he continued to attack anyway, knowing it was meaningless. He knew for sure that to become a legend, he couldn't just borrow the power of the founders, he had to do it with his own power. He then tried to slash Ikehara, but Ikehara easily dodged without moving much. Kanagi continuously attacked Ikehara while Ikehara was on the phone, asking him which social media he was using and telling him that he was sure the incident would be recorded and go viral. The students couldn't believe that Ikehara was on his phone while effortlessly dodging all of Kanagi's attacks, shouting that Ikehara was incredibly strong. Despite his efforts, Kanagi couldn't land a single hit on Ikehara, who wasn't even taking the fight seriously. The students were amazed by Kanagi's relentless attacks, yet one of them thought something was off about his movements. They wondered how long the fight would continue while watching intently. Kanagi lifted his sword, feinting a vertical slash before switching to a horizontal one aimed at Ikehara's feet and throat, successfully executing the move. Kanagi was amazed at how his body could move exactly as he wanted, realizing he didn't tire from the movements. He wondered if it was the effect of lending his body to the founders, knowing his body was changing. His thoughts were interrupted when Ikehara placed a finger on Kanagi's head, preparing to flick him, and mentioned that 10 seconds had already passed. Fortunately, Kanagi dodged in time, but Ikehara's released power destroyed the field, making Kanagi realize that his head would have been gone if the attack had hit. Ikehara looked at his hand in confusion, thinking it was strange since he didn't sense any evil from Kanagi and couldn't believe he had mistakenly adjusted his output. Meanwhile, Kanagi panicked, knowing he would be killed at this rate, and tried to recall the feeling of his stronger self. He then released a strong aura, surprising Ikehara. Kanagi attacked Ikehara again, and the students were amazed by his increasing speed, though he still couldn't land a hit. The students shouted that the camera couldn't keep up with their movements. Ikehara noticed Kanagi's increased speed and sensed a different atmosphere, wondering if there was a condition to activate this power or if Kanagi wanted to keep it a secret. Realizing another 10 seconds had passed, Ikehara decided to attack Kanagi lightly this time. He bent down and positioned his finger to flick again, but this time he hit Kanagi in the chest, sending him slamming into the wall hard. Kanagi coughed up blood but thought it was awesome and marvelous to be fighting against the world's strongest awakened. He knew that if his body were the same as yesterday's and had taken that hit, he would already be dead. This realization made him smile because he knew it meant he was getting stronger. However, he also knew that with his current skill, he wouldn't be able to pass Ikahara's test. He decided to brute force his way through the remaining time he had and ran towards Ikahara again. Suddenly, Ikahara appeared next to him with incredible speed, making Kanagi stop and look to his side. Ikahara apologized and told